once again, welcome back to our group. We think very, very highly of you and your work. So we're glad that you're back in the domestic violence arena with us because we need all the good people we can get in this particular area. So should we just kick off with the questions, or do you have something you'd like to tell us first?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me back. It's good to be back with this group that's very dedicated to improving safety in our community. And we all know that domestic violence it is pervasive throughout many communities. Ours is no exception to that. And so everything that we can do to have a survivor centered response to domestic violence, I think is really important. And I'm excited to share with you what we're working on. So we can go ahead and go into the questions.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read them because the other members have not seen the questions, but just so they know what we're talking about. So question number one, what current programs and activities is the Pima County Attorney's Office engaged in to better protect survivors of domestic violence?
Well, the first thing that we are working on, which I'm really excited to be a part of, we are partnering with Emerge. It started last year. One of the big issues that we had was that our victim advocates were on call on nights and weekends, and that was particularly draining for them. They deal with these situations all day, and then they, in many cases, sacrifice their nights and weekends. This also was helpful for Emerge, which, for those of you who are not familiar, they are the domestic violence shelter in our community. Unfortunately, as many organizations did, Emerge lost most of their federal grant money. And one of the issues that Emerge faced, and part of their core mission, is that they don't do things that are harmful to survivors. And they were being asked to report to ICE any undocumented survivors that were in shelter, and they refused to do that. They chose to sacrifice their federal funds. We now partner with them so that they respond to the scene on nights and weekends to offer services and victim advocacy for survivors. That's crucial to build that rapport early with survivors, let them know what safety can look like. We've also added 2 attorneys and 3 staff members to the domestic violence unit at the county attorney's office. That's helping us to work through the backlog of cases and also to be able to take a more proactive approach rather than reactive approach to the domestic violence cases that law enforcement bring to us. So those are a few of the initiatives we're working on now. I know we have also, as an office, hired additional victim advocates, which that's also really crucial to allow survivors to have that direct connection with someone that can connect them to services.
Okay. By the way, guys, after Kendrick has a chance to answer the questions, if there are follow-up questions you want to pose, then just put them in the chat or whatever, and we'll go through those too. Okay, so given what you're doing, what are the gaps? What programs, activities are still needed to better protect DV survivors?
Well, we always need more staff, and we also need more law enforcement. I am proud to announce that TPD brought us our first case with the alternate light source technology that all of you were able to gift to TPD.
Oh, right on.
And we are working on that and making sure that we litigate it the right way so that it is found to be upheld and admissible in court. Additionally, TPD has a number of new detectives that are coming in, and we're hoping to partner with them and have some of our new attorneys and staff also join TPD going to advanced strangulation training. That's something that either takes place through the Family Justice Center Alliance in San Diego. We're actually hoping to bring them to Tucson. I would also say that another gap, and it really is for the community, there's a group that's working to bring a family justice center to Tucson that's actually brick and mortar. They have actually announced they have a location selected for that, and they are planning to have sort of a one-stop shop for survivors that they can go to that will partner with Dress for Success, that partner with Emerge, partner with law enforcement, as well as other services in the community, including the Department of Child Safety. So those are really the gaps right now. And I think there's also certainly a need for greater focus on dangerousness. We have done more no bond hearings in the past 7 months than we have in the past several years that we now have the staffing to be able to accomplish. When someone commits a new felony while on release for a felony, oftentimes in our cases, it's with the same victim. That enables us to make sure that no amount of money can get that person released and able to reoffend or re-victimize that person.
You've basically made our day with the camera information.
Yes.
Okay, so question number 4 then. We have heard reports of persons who have been found guilty of previous domestic violence related crimes not being prosecuted for new offenses. Please comment on PCAO's prosecution practices as they relate to multiple offense DV offenders.
And so one of the things that I think we are moving towards, and we do have the staffing right now, where the question that we can ask ourselves is this case prosecutable, as opposed to we're drowning, we just can't take all the cases, which is a much more comfortable place to be. That's certainly where I want our community to be. The unfortunate thing is survivors are ready at different times. Sometimes there are survivors who may be ready at one point to participate in prosecution of a case, and then in the future, for whatever reason, are not ready or are not in a position where they feel they can do that. Someone's criminal history is certainly an important consideration for us, and we do give a lot of weight to that, but that's not the only consideration. And sometimes we are in the unfortunate position where we cannot go forward when we don't have enough evidence. I will say that I am very proud that in the last year, we took 2 cases to trial with no participation from the victim whatsoever, and both of those resulted in convictions. And those cases were strictly based on evidence and other eyewitnesses who were willing to come forward. And so we have to seize those opportunities when we can. And now that we have additional staff, we can continue to turn over rocks and see if there are those cases where we can go forward even when a victim is unable or unwilling to participate.
Okay, thank you. 5th question. Judge Million's DV firearm transfer program has just avoided the funding acts for the remainder of the fiscal year, in large part due to the advocacy of the League. How can the Pima County Attorney's Office help the judge maintain and expand this critical gun violence prevention program countywide?
Well, first of all, thank you for all of your advocacy on that. That program is certainly very important to me. And it obviously can't be expanded if it loses its funding. This was another victim of DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, which wasn't really a department. And so it's very important that mayor and council understand the significance and importance of that program. Our elected county attorney has relayed those concerns to mayor and council as well, especially in getting orders of protection served and in seizing firearms where ordered to do so. I will say that Judge Crystal Foster, who I'm very pleased inherited domestic violence court from me in justice court, is working diligently to implement that program in justice court as well. That is going to require the participation of the sheriff's department, which so far has indicated they are interested in doing so. Judge Laney McDonald is trying to implement that for Superior Court. It's ironic that actually Judge Million's program in a misdemeanor court is the best practice that our Arizona Supreme Court has indicated they want implemented statewide. And we don't even have that currently for felonies right now. So one of the things that I'm very proud of that Judge Million and I, when I was on the bench, successfully lobbied for was to keep adult probation in DV court, both for city court and justice court. That's critical. Probation officers are able to do things that the judge simply cannot do, like searching homes for firearms, seeing if there's unapproved victim contact, all of those things. But I'm very excited to work with Judge Foster to implement that program on a countywide basis. We have noticed that in the unincorporated parts of the county, there is somewhat more pushback on surrendering firearms than there has been in the city, which is to be expected. But particularly when you're talking about remote locations, I think it makes it all the more critical because it's much more likely that a survivor could be isolated in that situation.
Judge Foster, welcome to our group. Would you like to add anything to this on this question?
I would, thank you. I know I just popped in to join you all today. So we piloted the firearms paperwork, all of that whole protocol last fall here. In my court, in the specialty court here, we will be pushing those papers, that protocol out to all the other courts within Pima County Justice Court in the spring with Judge McDonald. Judge McDonald again brought her protocol from Marana Court to Superior Court for orders of protection. And then we will also be introducing that to Pima County Justice Court as well. So we have the forms. We're ready to go. I was just appointed to the statewide committee, so we'll be working on that. I know the state has, again, like Mr. Wilson said, that they want to bring Judge Million's work across the state, and so we are working on hopefully getting forms statewide that are all the same, so it doesn't confuse people everywhere. So I'll be a part of that work as well.
So Judge Foster and Kendrick, part of the beauty of Judge Million's program is the ability to track and keep track of not only the firearms, but the prohibited possessors. That's going to take some money. That'll take money along with hiring the officers to serve the orders of protection. How do you guys see us addressing those two things? Because right now you have Bob Buller, who performs that function. That's a big part of this program, is the tracking of the firearms. So are you guys going to be asking for supplemental packages or something to help fund that record keeping process countywide? Or I don't know. I'm worried about that part because it's so crucial to know which guns are we talking about and the people that own them. I mean, keeping track of both that sets of information. Any thoughts?
Well, let me just jump in.
Go ahead, Judge.
Both go at the same time. I know Kendrick spoke about advocating with City Council for that. And I definitely am keeping the County Board of Supervisors that I know abreast of what this information is. I don't have a proposal necessarily right now. I can bring that up with Judge McDonald, but I do want to see what happens with City Council's work on that. I know we want to make sure that we can keep Bob in that work and see if that's funded, but I definitely attend all those meetings with Judge Million, and we will bring the County Board of Supervisors, make sure that they are included in these conversations.
Thank you both.
And to the extent that our office can help with that too, we definitely want to collaborate and can also dedicate some staff time to tracking that. As you said, that is so important. And I would like to point out that the single most important thing in reducing domestic violence homicides is getting firearms out of dangerous households. That is the single most important thing that can happen. And of the homicides involving an intimate partner, more than 50% of those involve the use of a firearm. So it is very important that we take that crucial step. It is a matter of life and death.
Yeah. Sounds wonderful, because this is a regional problem. It isn't just Tucson or Pima County. It's every incorporated entity in Pima County. So I think this requires a regional solution to really get to protect all the survivors of domestic violence. Okay, I'm going to ask you guys one more question. It's not on your list, but it's topical. And then we can open it up to everybody else. In light of what's happened in Minnesota, what is the Pima County Attorney's Office doing to help ensure the safety of lawful protesters of the ICE actions? Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because that's a violence issue now.
It is a violence issue. And I think those of you that have been following in the newspaper, our elected county attorney has been encouraging people essentially not to take the bait, but to engage in lawful First Amendment activities and in videotaping where appropriate, but not to approach, not to put themselves in danger. Our elected county attorney has been very vocal about the fact that that to the extent that the law allows, that she will take action if violence is used against people who are lawfully exercising their First Amendment rights. One of the things that's very important, I think, here is, and to bring it back to domestic violence, the chilling effect that these activities have on people who may not have legal status, but other than that, may themselves be victimized. And are they going to trust law enforcement? And I would point out that our police chief, our elected sheriff have made it very clear that if they are responding to a domestic violence call, they are not interested in a reportee's immigration status. They're not going to ask. They are there to try to help. One of the roles that my office currently plays, and it's actually a role specifically to me, is to evaluate requests for what are called U visas, which that is for survivors who have been victims of a crime, in particular in cases of domestic violence. Regardless of what their status was before, a U visa can give them legal status in this country if they have participated in the prosecution of a crime that was affected against them. In fact, most recently, I had a survivor request a U visa last week and go through that process. That's one of the crucial parts of having victim advocates is by statute in Arizona, what a survivor says to a victim advocate is confidential, meaning that cannot be used against them, that cannot be used to report them to ICE. And knowing that they have that confidentiality and can talk about the possibility of a U visa is very crucial. Luckily, we have not seen the same level of violence that they've seen in Minnesota, and I think that would be the absolute worst thing that could happen in our community. But it's also crucial that organizations like Emerge have turned to alternate funding sources so that they can maintain their confidentiality and maintain their safe houses for survivors.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, guys, before we let them go? Meg? You're muted.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'm just curious, I have forwarded some information to Anna Harper about some bills that I've come across in the legislature that I don't know if that would be useful information to pass on to your office, or if you already have people that are monitoring what's going on, currently in touch with that. A couple of them one was a reintroduction of a domestic violence bill from a couple of years past, related to specifically removing firearms in cases of domestic violence. And that was Senator Kuby has introduced that bill. And there's a couple of others that I have sent to Anna. I don't have the reference right in front of me. I think 2717 was one of them. It's really in depth, spelling out the rights of survivors of domestic violence. And if that would be information that you're not currently accessing and would like, I can certainly send you those bill numbers and some information about that.
Well, I think that information is always helpful for my office to have. We do lobby the state legislature, as you're aware, and especially when it's something that involves survivors of domestic violence. So more information is always better. And Anna is a friend of mine, and she is excellent at advocating for her cause. But anytime that we can speak with a unified voice, I think that makes it even more effective.
Right.
Any other questions?
Wendy has her hand up.
This is relation to violence in the community. Any recommendations you would give to like the international students that I work with at the university as far as protecting themselves?
I wish I had a silver bullet for that. I think that as far as international students, one of the things that we're hearing is to always carry their documentation, if they have passport and visa, to always carry that with them. It's unfortunate that we have to say that now. People from other countries don't always know what their constitutional rights are because some of them come from countries where they don't have the same constitutional rights. There are some groups that are giving out cards saying you don't have to allow people into a residence without a signed judicial warrant. Informing them of things like that, I think, are important. Even in Mexico, you don't necessarily have the right to refuse searches. And so people just our next door neighbors may not know that they have those rights here in this country. And also that if they do run into law enforcement, they do have the right to speak with their country's embassy if they have any trouble with the law, and to make sure that they have contact information for that so they can make that request if need be. It's unfortunate that we have to have this conversation now, but those are all things that are crucial.
Thank you.
Kathy D.
So I recently heard Laura Conover talk about how violent crime is way down in Pima County, except for domestic violence. So in light of that, do you think that she will be upping, her, actions in that area?
Well, I can tell you the fact that she gave me 2 more attorneys and 3 more staff members is indicative of the concern that she has for that. I will say, unfortunately, as some of you have probably seen in the news, there was a very unfortunate domestic violence homicide that happened a couple of months ago with a woman that was in her 70s, and her partner, who had been to prison for domestic violence against her before, was on probation for an aggravated DUI. I can tell you that that was one of many things. All homicides are tragedies. That one really shook my office all the way to the elected official, that, how could this have happened? That's one where we've already begun the conversation with next of kin if they would be willing to consent to having that case reviewed by the Pima County Domestic Violence Fatality Review, where we can evaluate how systems could have that's not about assigning blame, but how systems could function better to intervene and prevent violence. So I can tell you that it's definitely a major priority now. And this is something that we are trying to make it also the priority of law enforcement. As I said, we've done more no bond hearings in the past 7 months than we had in the past 3 years. So I think we're definitely trying to send a strong message, and to send a message for survivors. If there is a belief that nothing will happen, the incentive to report, the incentive to participate in prosecution is very low. So there needs to be a belief that the system will work for them. Otherwise, there's not going to be any buy-in.
Thank you.
Laura? Laura? Did
2
you want to say
questions. So the no bond, by that you mean no release possible versus releasing you without posting a bond?
That is correct. So under the Arizona Constitution, if there is proof evident and presumption great that an individual committed a new felony while on release for a felony, if the state proceeds to a contested hearing and proves that to the judge, then no amount of money can get that person released from custody, being that they've demonstrated that they continue to offend and continue to be a danger either to a particular victim or to the community at large if they're out of custody.
Thank you for that clarification. The other thing is about paperwork. I've got citizens who are, people of color, et cetera. Now you mentioned international students. Should they actually carry their passport or a copy of their passport? I get concerned that their original somehow could mysteriously disappear in the hole of which they find themselves if they ever get arrested.
That's something that, as far as people that are from other countries, I would encourage them to speak with their country's embassy and ask what they recommend. It may vary from country to country. At a time when we trusted our State Department more, that was what you would do. If you were going to be going to another country, you might touch base with the embassy, find out what they recommend. I don't know what kind of services they have for Americans overseas now, but that is something I would encourage them to be in touch with, and also to register with their country's embassy. That way they know that they're here, and they know that they may be expecting to hear from them if they run into any trouble with the law. And that is a matter of international law. If someone is arrested or incarcerated and they are a citizen of another country, they have the right to reach out to their embassy and to have their country's embassy get involved.
Thank you.
any other questions?
Yeah, I have one. And also I wanted to acknowledge Chandrea Thomas from Pima County Attorney's Office. Chandrea, we can't see you, and I don't know if you have any comments you want to make.
I'm here for the comments.
Okay. Got it. Okay, my question is, I'd heard in the past, and I think it was from Laura, who there was quite a backlog of cases, and I was just wanting to check in and see how that's coming along, whether you're managing to chip away at that at all.
We are getting through the backlog, not as quickly as I would like, but we are getting through it. And I can tell you right now, I see on my floor with our 2 additional attorneys. In fact, if my door were open right now, you would hear people on the phone speaking with victims right now. This is a constant thing, and it's important that victims have the right to be heard and that we hear what their concerns are, what their desire for cases are. And I can tell you right now that we are getting through the backlog, and we are getting cases resolved that should be resolved. We are getting cases tried that need to be tried. And my goal is that by the end of the year that we are deciding which cases are going to trial instead of the accused deciding which cases are going to trial, where we know that there may be cases where nothing short of the sentence after a trial conviction is appropriate, and we don't offer anything better than that. But it is important that we have that breathing room, and we also have just the bandwidth so that victims can be heard and can feel like they are being acknowledged. And the other thing that's helping with that is the addition of more victim advocates as well. They play a crucial role.
Judge Foster, you want to say something?
I just wanted to jump in and say what an honor it is to take over the work that Kendrick Wilson did here in Justice Court. And as we know, justices of the peace, we are elected. And I just wanted to ask for permission to put the website for that in the chat for you all, because I am up for re-election this year, and I really do hope to continue this work. And I also wanted to let everybody know, please come to my courtroom. I really would love your feedback. I would love your input. It's an open public space. We do the domestic violence court here in Pima County Justice Court every Tuesday and Wednesday. In the mornings, we have the case management conferences for cases that have not been resolved yet. And in the afternoons, I do the review hearings. And very similar to Judge Millian, I bring in the providers who are offering the classes to the defendants. And I truly believe that the best way for me to support the families and the victims and the community is by really wrapping around, right, the services for the defendants so that I'm getting input from how they're doing in the classes. And if somebody says, oh, I've been there, Judge, I've been there, I've done 20 classes, and then I say, okay, well, Cope, what do you see? And they say, well, we actually haven't had him here. So there's no wiggle room, right, to get out of this important work. And I think that's the best way, is that accountability. And I'd love you to come see what that looks like, because I also support them. I'm not, they need somebody who believes in their ability to complete this work and their ability to grow and change. And so we're very positive about it. They're not going to come back and work with us if we're negative. So I would welcome you to always come and see what we're doing. And we're on the 5th floor, courtroom 504.
Thank you. Kendrick, we were heartbroken when you didn't get reelected, but we're happy that Judge Foster's filling the breach, and we're glad.
I'm very happy that she's doing that too. And I think it's crucial that when you're talking about misdemeanor domestic violence court, what Judge Foster has to work with is 6 months in jail, which hopefully our survivors plan to live longer than 6 months. And so it has to be behavior modifying. And the underlying thing, and another potential field trip I saw in the chat, was to go to see Judge Foster's court at some point to observe DV orientation at City Court. It's a big time commitment. It's at Friday in the afternoon in City Court. But it really shows you, and certainly Judge Foster can speak to this as well. I know she observed it as well, to see the model. And it's about, they have separate groups for men and women, but the men's group is about to get men to acknowledge when they are engaging in a power and control dynamic, the wrongfulness of it, and to speak out about breaking that cycle. And most often it is intergenerational. It's a taught behavior that comes up, and a fair amount of that comes from the way that in many ways that men are raised in our society, that there are only certain emotions that are acceptable for them to express. One of those being anger, and as opposed to expressing being hurt and different things like that. So it's about trying to give these young men opportunities and tools really to express themselves in different ways and to break that intergenerational cycle.
Okay. Wendy,
Mike,
did you want to ask something?
I'm sorry, Mike, one more time, if I could just jump in, and I want to say,
Sure.
I'm surprised. I am so surprised that when they complete the 26 sessions, I so often hear, I'm not going to stop going because I found community, I have found support. This is my Monday night so just the shout out to the providers that we work with. It really, really is those centers, those providers are really making change in our community.
Awesome. Wendy.
I'm primarily working with the medical profession here in Tucson. So anyway, the medical profession can support your work better.
We're always in need of more forensic nurse examiners. That's a very specialized area. I would also say that as far as people in the medical profession, to the extent that they can educate themselves about strangulation, non-fatal strangulation is a tremendous red flag for domestic violence and a lethality risk. So learning what the symptoms are, learning what the red flags are, especially if a patient is not being forthcoming about having been strangled, but there are physical signs of that, so that members of the medical community would know that there is something that they may have to do a mandated report to law enforcement because they are seeing signs not just of trauma, but of strangulation. I think that's a really crucial thing. I can also share some information with Kathy and Mike about the trainings that are put on by the Family Justice Center Alliance. They do have trainings for medical professionals as well.
You know, that is excellent. And I'm looking for stuff to put in the Pima County Medical Society newsletter. And I'm working with the health department. And most of us are not educated at all in this area. So I'd like to work with you to get this out to doctors in the community.
That'd be excellent. I'd like to work on that. Yeah.
Great. Kathy.
Yeah. We love field trips. Now you opened the door to this. I'm just wondering if there is a limit to how many people you would like. It may be more than just our team. I'd like to be able to open this up to some other leaguers as well who might be interested. Do you have a number where it would be, too many?
I would say
It might be a small number, it might be 20, I don't know.
we have a big courtroom. We are much bigger than city court. I can tell you there's much more space in our courtroom than city court. And so I'm 200 might be too many. I don't think 20 would be.
Okay. We'll cut it off at 150. Okay. That sounds good.
That every 7 weeks, I don't do review hearings because I'm on what we call arraignment duty. So it would not be a good week to come the week of President's Day. So February 16th through 20th would not be a good time, but any other Tuesday or Wednesday. Not that you would want to come that soon, but you are more than welcome to.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
Molly.
Oh, thank you, Mike, and thank you all for being here. I have 2 questions. Well, one is just sort of perfunctory. Judge Foster, who are the providers for this training? It would be good to know, just so that we could be aware of that, support those people.
Right. We work with COPE, with Center for Life Skills, with Better Day Counseling, and with Teros Health.
Better Day. And what was the last one again?
Teros Health, Terros.
Terros. Okay. Better Days, and it's Better Days Counseling?
Yes.
Okay. And are they faith-based? Are they just straight, are they across the board? A little bit of everything?
Across the board.
Okay. And my second question is, what do you all think about red flag laws in terms of domestic violence prevention? Not after the fact, but before. There's so much that they've pretty much been chucked down the hole under the current administration. Anything on guns is gone away. Any kind of, moderation, any regulation is gone. And the state has been kind of iffy on this too. At one point, Chris Mays was going to move on a red flag law, and then that fell through the cracks, or at least we never heard about it again. I didn't hear about it again. So what do you think about that?
So I certainly think that red flag laws are crucial. And there's more than one way of doing that too. If it's in a domestic violence situation, the standard for issuing an order of protection, which can impose a firearms restriction under Arizona law, is whether there is reasonable cause to believe that the accused in that case has committed an act of domestic violence within the past year or will commit an act of domestic violence within the next year if the order is not issued. And if the judge finds that this person poses a credible threat to the safety of the protected person, they can impose a firearms restriction and order surrender within 24 hours. But this just shows the crucial nature of Judge Million's firearm project that Judge Foster and Judge McDonald are trying to expand. I naively thought when I was issuing those orders that somebody was following up on it. And little did I know that that was not happening. It was strictly on the honor system, which when you have someone in crisis, the honor system is probably the worst possible formula that you can have. I know that I'm sure Judge Foster does the same way because she and I work together on it. I would emphasize to the person that they had to surrender their firearms within 24 hours. They could face felony charges if they didn't. But I think that's absolutely crucial. And there are definitely times where I had ordered firearm surrender. That was very important. One of the changes that we're making in our office right now that had sort of fallen through the cracks under federal law. I don't know if anybody recalls the Lautenberg Amendment to the Violent Crime Act in 1994 that made intimate partner physical violence either assault or stalking behavior. If the person was convicted, whether it was misdemeanor or felony, it made them a prohibited possessor of firearms or live ammunition under federal law. We are now including that clause in all of our plea agreements where someone is pleading guilty to a domestic violence assault or stalking behavior. Another thing that stalking conviction enables under Arizona law, if they want it, that entitles the victim to a lifetime injunction, meaning that the person is restrained from contact with them forever instead of just the 2 years under the order of protection.
Wow. So do you think that in addition to what Judge Million is doing in her court, or what she hopes to continue doing, that we need red flag laws on top of that?
It always helps. So the gap where a red flag law could help, where it can't right now, let's say that the family believes that this person is a danger to themselves as opposed to a danger to the other members of the family. It would be a somewhat difficult factual basis to find that they were committed an act of domestic violence or that that would fill in that gap where the current order of protection firearm law would probably not be able to be applied. And I think that's something, or where the family has a concern that they might pose a risk to a third party, but not anyone who's in court trying to get an order. And so that's something where I think that's where the real gap is.
In suicide prevention.
In suicide prevention, or a danger to some third party that may not know that they need the protection.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much.
Any other questions for our esteemed guests? You guys, thank you, Judge and Kendrick. Thank you so much for joining us and answering. It's been wonderful to talk to you. And can we maybe schedule you guys again down the road sometime if we need to follow up on some things?
Be great.
That would be great. I'd welcome it.
Thank you.
Thank you
Mike,
both.
Actually, just one more question is, I don't know. I'm curious. It seems like we've gotten different figures with different interviews. Not far off, but how much are guns involved in domestic violence? How often is a gun involved in domestic violence?
Well, it depends. I mean, and it certainly is more than 50% of domestic violence homicides. So when a fatality takes place, it is more likely than not that a firearm was involved. There are various levels of domestic violence. Judge Foster is seeing misdemeanors, which I used to see, which can actually be violent without necessarily causing serious physical injury. I think those are less likely to involve a firearm, although the presence of a firearm in the home when violence is occurring is a red flag and is dangerous. The entire basis for some felony charges is the use of a weapon. We also see the use of knives. That does happen as well. That's a little more difficult to control because I don't think anyone is seriously talking about prohibiting people from having kitchen knives. It is something that is less likely to be fatal than a firearm. So we definitely see it, and it's more likely in felonies. But just because a firearm wasn't used in a domestic violence incident doesn't mean it's not a lethality risk. Having it present in the home where the perpetrator knows where it is and knows how to access it is in and of itself an elevated lethality risk.
And do you think that that's often the case, that a gun is in the house, that the potential threat of gun violence exists in whenever domestic violence occurs?
That's really a case-by-case situation. We know that I think if you were to compare our cases with, say, cases in San Diego, you would see fewer guns in San Diego because California has stricter gun laws. In fact, to possess a firearm, you actually have to take classes there, which I don't think is a bad thing because I've seen some cases here where there was no intent to do any harm, but because people were able to walk into a gun store, know nothing about operating a firearm, and just walk out with a operational firearm and accidentally cause serious injury to someone. It's unfortunate that that can happen, but we do know that there are a fair amount of firearms in our community. Again, I think in the unincorporated parts of the county, it's more likely. In the more remote areas, it's pervasive there, which poses its own threat. In the city, if a survivor needs to leave immediately, there's likely access to a bus, which is currently free. There's the ability to get somewhere, to get out onto a street where there would be other witnesses present. If you live in Picture Rocks, that is not an option that's available to you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you both for your service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Is that it? Oh, I do. I have one final thing. What else can the league do? What can we do? Whether it's letters, whether it's coming to meetings and just being a presence, is there anything specific that you can recommend to this group?
I would say, first of all,
Either
continue to keep Judge Million's Firearms Project on the radar. I can tell you right now, when San Diego in the 90s, Casey Gwinn, he was the elected city attorney of San Diego at the time, and they brought survivors to every city council meeting. And for those of you who are familiar with San Diego, they were going through a budget crisis in the 90s because their retirement system was going insolvent. And so they continued to have a budget crisis. Survivors came to every city council meeting and they found the money for a family justice center. So keep putting this on the radar. This is a serious issue for our community. When the time comes, stand with Judge Foster and putting it on the radar of the Board of Supervisors. I think those are crucial things. And also, please keep showing up for Emerge. This is a crucial organization for our community that lost its federal funding. Hopefully someday it'll get it back, but that does not reduce the fact that they operate safe houses for survivors. And we can't allow that service to go away in our community because they've lost their federal funding. So whatever we can do, whatever fundraising we can do for Emerge to keep them in this fight, that's absolutely crucial for the community.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I kept,
We promise to keep making good noise
Good trouble. Good trouble.
yeah.
All right.
Kathy,
and noise.
I
I
was
like noise.
saying, like, oh, I gotta say this after Kendrick says this. Oh, I gotta say that after Kendrick says this, and he was following my line of consciousness. So we absolutely emerge in our all the providers. There's really such critical need for funding because those programs are all, they're supported by grants. And we know that so many programs right now are just struggling because of grant monies. So absolutely, all of that we can help with the advocating for grant funding. We'll probably have to do that at the state level in the next couple of years, not so much at the federal level. And just, Judge Million's court is a model nationwide, and it's what I've modeled my court on here. And just to help people know that statewide, this court in Tucson is a model. It's also on Justice Timmer's strategic plan to have this firearms project statewide in every court throughout the state. And so we have to have a well-funded program here if it's going to be a model for every court across Arizona.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay.
Thanks
We
again.
have our marching orders. Okay.
We do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Kathy, it's all yours.
Okay. There was so much there. There was so much there.
Yes.
We're still recording right now. I'm going to go ahead and shut it off because